Some dreams feel out of reach, but Bella refused to let fear hold her back. Moving to Korea was her biggest challenge, new culture, new job, and obstacles she never expected. But giving up was never an option. Sit tight, grab your popcorn, and let Bella take you through her journey of chasing dreams, facing challenges, and discovering something she never saw coming. Bella's heart raced as the airplane touched down in Seoul. She couldn't believe it. After all these years of dreaming, her new life in Korea had officially begun. Every step of the way had led her here. The endless hours of studying Korean, the late-night email exchanges with Mr. Joshua, the boss who had recommended her for this high-stakes job. It felt like destiny had worked its magic. But even as excitement surged through her, there was a gnawing sense of uncertainty. She wasn't just entering a new country. She was diving straight into an unfamiliar world where she'd be the outsider, the foreigner. She had heard enough about the Korean work culture to know that it was intense. And then there was the CEO she would be working with, Lee Jun. No one spoke about him openly, but everyone had an opinion. Cold, stoic, a workaholic with no time for nonsense. The whispers had all been the same. Stay out of his way. Bella had no choice but to work under him. He had the power to make or break her in this industry. But she didn't care. She had been brought up to fight for what she wanted. She was here to make her mark. The first day in the office was overwhelming. Bella had arrived early, her nerves jangling as she stood outside the towering glass building. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to step forward, though a voice in the back of her mind warned her this would be no ordinary job. As she entered the building, everything seemed too perfect, too precise, like it belonged to another world. The sleek walls gleamed and everything was impeccably organized. Her colleagues glanced her way as she walked past them. Bella's heart thudded. She was a stranger here, a foreigner among them. Some looked at her curiously, while others cast, but she couldn't focus on them now. There was a bigger task at hand, Lee Jun. Bella found her desk, trying to steady her nerves when the door opened with a soft click. "Miss Bella, right?" came the voice. She looked up. There, standing in front of her, was a tall man dressed in a sharp black suit. His dark eyes scanned her for a split second before he spoke again. "You're late. I was expecting you 15 minutes ago." It took Bella a moment to process his words. This was him. Lee Jun. He didn't smile, didn't offer a handshake, just coldly assessed her, his gaze unreadable. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, Before she could finish, he turned, his sharp suit rustling as he walked away. "Follow me," he said, without looking back. Bella blinked, stunned by his icy demeanor. She grabbed her things, struggling to keep up as he led her through a maze of pristine hallways. The man radiated power, but there was something more, something cold. He stopped in front of a door and glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "This is my office. You will report directly to me. Your job is to make sure everything is in order, no mistakes. Understood?" Bella nodded quickly, swallowing her nerves. The tension in the air between them was suffocating. She had dreamed of this moment, but now that she was here, the reality was far more intense than she'd imagined. Before she could say anything more, he turned and walked into his office, leaving her standing in the doorway, heart pounding. The door shut with a soft thud. Bella took a deep breath. "I can do this," she thought. "I came here for this job. I came here for this chance." Little did she know. The cold CEO who seemed to care about nothing more than his work was about to become far more complicated than she could ever imagine. Bella had barely had time to process what had just happened when she found herself seated at her desk, staring at the blinking cursor on her computer screen. Mr. Lee was no longer in sight, and the coldness of the office atmosphere seemed to echo in her ears. It was as if everyone had been given the same memo. Keep your distance from the new foreigner. Despite the frosty reception, Bella refused to let it shake her. She had worked too hard to get here, and a cold CEO wasn't going to ruin her dream. She straightened up in her chair and began going through the emails piled up on her screen, trying to distract herself from the whispering voices of her colleagues around her. She could hear them talking. Their murmurs were just low enough to avoid detection by the supervisors, but Bella caught every word. The words foreigner, different, and strange lingered in the air. She hated the feeling of being an outsider, but she knew this was something she had to push through. She had to prove that she belonged. "Hey, Bella," a voice suddenly said, breaking her concentration. She turned her head to see a woman with a friendly smile standing by her desk. The woman had short black hair and a warm, approachable vibe. She was dressed in a crisp white blouse and pencil skirt, the typical office uniform, but there was something comforting about the way she carried herself. "Hi, I'm Sunmi, Mimi for short. I just wanted to come over and introduce myself. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Bella couldn't help but smile, her heart warming at the kindness. "Thank you, Mimi," she replied, feeling a little lighter. "It's been a bit overwhelming." Mia nodded sympathetically. "Yeah, I know how that feels. It's a lot to take in, especially when you're new. But don't worry, we're all here to help you." Bella was surprised by how quickly Mimi had picked up on her discomfort. She'd always been good at reading people, and it was a relief to find someone who wasn't cold or dismissive. "I'm really glad to meet you," Bella said, leaning forward slightly. "I've always wanted to work in Korea, and I'm excited to be here, but it's kind of hard when everyone seems to keep their distance." Mimi hesitated for a moment, then gave a knowing look. "It's not just you. Things are a little tense here right now, especially with Mr. Lee around. He can be a bit intense, you know." Bella raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Lee? The CO?" "Yeah," Mimi said softly, lowering her voice. "He's hard to get close to. He's focused, always working, and rarely takes a break. Everyone's afraid of him, but honestly, it's not just him. Some people here can be a little cliquey. They don't always embrace newcomers, but don't worry, you'll find your place." Bella's chest tightened at the mention of Mr. Lee. She had already seen how cold and distant he was, but hearing this made her feel even more alienated. Still, Mimi's words were comforting. Maybe not everything was as harsh as it seemed. As the hours passed, Bella slowly started getting into the rhythm of the office. She answered emails, organized files, and helped coordinate meetings. But it was impossible to ignore the tension that hung over her every interaction. The subtle glances, the hushed tones. She knew the other employees were watching her. She glanced at her phone. A message from Mr. Lee flashed on the screen. The first communication since their brief encounter in his office. Meeting at 3 p.m, be on time. It was so curt, so formal, just like him. Her heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just any meeting. This was with the man who had barely acknowledged her existence beyond her work duties, the man who was impossible to read. What could he possibly want from her? Bella took a deep breath, steadying herself. No matter how cold he was, no matter how distant the office felt, she couldn't back down now. She had come all this way to prove herself, and she wasn't about to let anything or anyone stop her. The day had been long, filled with reports, meetings, and endless paperwork. Bella sat at her desk, typing up the final draft of a report she'd been working on all afternoon. It was the end of the day, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing. She glanced at the clock. 2:45 p.m. A meeting with Mr. Lee was scheduled in 15 minutes. Her stomach fluttered nervously. She had learned quickly that Mr. Lee was not a man who enjoyed small talk, and his meetings were always precise and business-focused. No room for pleasantries. He had barely spoken a word to her since she'd started, and she wasn't sure what to expect when they were alone in that meeting room. "Mimo," Bella whispered, leaning over to her new friend's desk. "What should I expect from Mr. Lee in this meeting?" Mimi looked up from her work, glancing around before speaking in a quiet voice. "Mr. Lee? Well, he's efficient, cold, doesn't like personal chatter, Just stick to the facts, and don't get on his bad side. Bella nodded, trying to absorb the advice, but her nerves were still on edge. She could already feel the weight of his presence looming over her, despite the distance between them. At 3 p.m. sharp, the intercom buzzed, signaling that the meeting room was ready. Bella straightened her blouse and walked toward the door, her heart racing in her chest. As she entered, Mr. Lee was already seated, his sharp gaze fixated on the laptop in front of him. He didn't look up when she entered. "Take a seat," he said in his usual cold tone, not even sparing her a glance. Bella did as instructed, trying to remain calm. She set her notebook and pen on the table and opened the file on her tablet. "Good afternoon, Mr. Lee. I've prepared the reports you requested." He glanced at her, his eyes hard and calculating. "I'm aware." His voice was detached, emotionless. "Let's see them." Bella handed over the tablet, her hand slightly trembling as she did so. Mr. Lee skimmed through the report without saying a word, his face an unreadable mask. Bella could feel the silence between them growing, thick with tension. She wanted to say something, anything, but every word seemed to die on her lips. Then, after a long pause, Mr. Lee finally spoke. "You did well, but next time, don't waste time with unnecessary details." Bella swallowed, feeling her heart race even faster. His tone was still cold, but there was something about the way he said it that made her want to prove herself even more. He was clearly hard to please, but maybe that was exactly what she needed, a challenge. "Understood, Mr. Lee," she replied, her voice steady. The meeting was brief, just a few more minutes of silence and cold professional exchanges, but as Bella stood up to leave, something unexpected happened. Mr. Lee's voice, softer than before, caught her attention. "You're not like the others," he said, almost as if to himself. Bella froze, her hand still on the door handle. "Excuse me?" He didn't look at her, his gaze still fixed on the reports. "You don't try to please everyone. You don't try too hard to fit in." Bella's heart skipped a beat. Was that a compliment? Before she could process his words, Mr. Lee stood up and walked out of the room without another word. She stood there for a moment, completely thrown off. Did he just compliment her? Or had she misinterpreted his words? As she made her way back to her desk, a sudden, unexpected voice called out to her. "Bella," Mia waved from her desk, a curious look in her eyes. "You're done with your meeting?" "Yeah," Bella replied, her mind still reeling from the interaction with Mr. Lee. "It was fine." Mia raised an eyebrow, sensing something was off. "What happened?" "You look different." Bella shook her head, not sure how to explain. "It's just, Mr. Lee is different than I thought. He's still cold, but I think he noticed something about me." Mia smiled knowingly. "Don't worry, Bella. He's not the type to admit it easily, but you're definitely on his radar. Just keep being yourself. He'll come around." Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Bella, a figure was lurking in the shadows, watching the interaction between the two women. Han Su-ah, the woman who had always been in Mr. Lee's orbit, stood just out of sight, her expression icy with jealousy. She had seen it, the way Mr. Lee had looked at Bella, even if it was just for a brief moment. It was enough to ignite a spark of possessiveness in Sua's heart. She had known Mr. Lee since childhood, and no foreigner was going to take his attention away from her. Bella tried to shake off the strange feeling she had after the meeting with Mr. Lee, but it lingered. His words replayed in her mind. "You don't try to please everyone. You don't try too hard to fit in." Why did it sound like he had been watching her closely? And why did it make her heart race? She had no time to dwell on it as her workload increased. Mr. Lee was a demanding boss, but Bella found herself rising to the challenge. She refused to let his cold demeanor intimidate her. If anything, it only pushed her to work harder. But while Bella was focused on proving herself, someone else was watching her with burning resentment. Han Su-ah had never cared about any of Mr. Lee's employees before. They were beneath her, background noise in her world. But Bella? She was different. For years, Su-ah had remained by Lee Jun's side, hoping he would see her as something more than an old friend. But now, a foreign woman, an outsider, had caught his attention. Su-ah refused to let that happen. She stormed into her office, her jaw clenched. Picking up her phone, she made a call. "I need a favor," she said, her voice laced with irritation. The next day at work, Bella was struggling to carry a stack of documents when she heard whispers. "Did you hear? Mr. Lee has been too nice to her." "She's only been here a short time. What makes her so special?" "She must be desperate for attention. Foreigners always think they can take anything they want." Bella's grip tightened around the papers. She turned and found two female employees exchanging smirks. She knew workplace gossip existed everywhere, but this was personal. She forced herself to ignore it, walking toward Mr. Lee's office. As she knocked, his cold voice called from inside. "Come in." She stepped inside, feeling the usual wave of intimidation. Lee Jun barely looked up from his computer as she approached his desk. "The contract reports you requested," she said, placing them down. He picked up the papers, flipping through them. "Good. Leave them here." Bella hesitated. Usually she would turn and walk out, but today something made her pause. "Mr. Lee," she said carefully, her voice softer than usual. He looked up, mildly surprised that she was still standing there. "What is it?" She exhaled, then shook her head. "Nothing." His brows furrowed slightly. It was rare for Bella to hesitate. He didn't push, but for the first time he found himself watching as she left. Something about her was starting to get under his skin. Later that evening, Bella stepped into the company lounge to grab a coffee when she felt a sudden shove from behind. The hot coffee in her hand splashed over her wrist, making her yelp in pain. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," a familiar voice said. Bella turned and met the cold eyes of Han Su-ah. Su-ah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You should be careful. Accidents happen all the time." Bella clenched her jaw, realizing instantly that this wasn't an accident. It was a warning. Su-ah leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you really think you belong here?" Bella refused to back down. She held Su-ah's gaze, her voice steady. "I do belong here, and I'm not going anywhere." For a moment the two women stood in silent battle. Then Su-ah smirked. "We'll see about that." She turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Bella standing there, coffee dripping from her fingers. For the first time, Bella realized that her battle wasn't just about proving herself at work. Now she had an enemy. Bella refused to let Han Su-ah's threats shake her. She had worked too hard to be here. She wasn't about to let a jealous woman push her out. But as the days passed, she couldn't ignore how the office tension grew. Whispers followed her everywhere, and even some of her colleagues who had been friendly before now kept their distance. She kept her head high, but it was exhausting. The only person who didn't change was Mimi. "You know, they're all just scared of Su-ah, right?" she said as they sat in the break room. Bella sighed. "I don't care about their gossip. I just want to focus on work." Mimi smirked. "And on a certain cold CO." Bella's face heated. "What? No? Why would I?" Mimi laughed. "Oh, come on. You think I haven't noticed how he actually looks at you?" Bella frowned. "He barely speaks to me unless it's work." Mimi shook her head. "Exactly. That's him showing interest. Trust me, Lee Jun doesn't waste time on people who don't matter to him." Bella brushed it off, but later that day she couldn't stop thinking about Mimi's words. That evening, Bella stayed late at the office, working on a last-minute report. The building was quiet, most of the employees gone. She stretched her arms, sighing as she rubbed her tired eyes. She needed a break. As she walked out of her office, she nearly bumped into someone. Lee Jun. He looked just as surprised to see her. "You're still here?" "I had some reports to finish," Bella said, glancing at the files in her hands. Lee Jun frowned slightly, glancing at his watch. It's almost midnight. Bella gave a small smile. I lost track of time. He stared at her for a long moment before exhaling. Come with me. She blinked. What? He didn't wait for her response, turning toward the elevator. Curious and slightly nervous, Bella followed him. Minutes later, they arrived at a quiet rooftop cafe. The Seoul skyline stretched before them, city lights twinkling in the distance. Bella looked around, surprised. You brought me here? Lee Jun shrugged, sitting at a table. You needed a break, and I needed coffee. Bella sat across from him, studying his face. His usual cold expression was softer under the nightlights. You don't seem like the kind of boss who worries about employees staying late, she said carefully. He looked away. I'm not. A small smile tugged at her lips. Then why are we here? Lee Jun didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slid a coffee toward her. Drink before it gets cold. Bella hesitated before taking a sip. Warmth spread through her, but it wasn't just from the coffee. For the first time, Lee Jun didn't seem so distant. She wasn't sure what this moment meant, but one thing was certain. Her heart was no longer listening to reason. And neither, it seemed, was his. The rooftop cafe moment lingered in Bella's mind long after that night. Lee Jun hadn't said much, but his actions spoke louder than words. He was opening up, bit by bit. But the next morning at work, it was as if nothing had happened. Lee Jun was back to his usual cold, distant self, barely acknowledging her. Bella told herself she didn't care, but deep down, it stung. Mimi noticed her frustration. Why do you look like someone stole your lunch? Bella groaned, rubbing her temples. Your boss is impossible. Mimi smirked. My boss? He's been acting different lately. And it all started when you showed up. Bella sighed. I don't understand him. One moment he's dragging me to a rooftop for coffee, and the next he's acting like I don't exist. Mia leaned closer. That's because he likes you. Bella scoffed. No, he doesn't. Mami raised an eyebrow. If he didn't, Han Sua wouldn't be glaring at you like she wants to set you on fire. Bella turned. And sure enough, Han Sua was watching her with pure hatred. Be careful, Bella, Mimo warned. Sua has had her eyes on Lee Jun since forever. She won't let you take him easily. Bella frowned. I'm not taking anyone. Mimi gave her a knowing look. Then why do you look so sad when he ignores you? Bella didn't have an answer for that. Later that evening, Bella was heading out of the office when she heard voices in the hallway. She paused. I don't understand, June, Han Sua's voice rang out. You never used to care about anyone, and now suddenly, you're different. I'm not different. Lee Jun's voice was as cold as ever. You are. It's because of her, isn't it? Sua's voice cracked. That foreign girl, Bella. Bella's breath hitched. There was a long silence. Then Lee Jun's voice, low, unreadable. You don't know what you're talking about. Sua let out a bitter laugh. I do. You're just too stubborn to admit it. Footsteps. Bella panicked and quickly stepped back, pressing against the wall. Sua stormed past her without noticing, her eyes filled with rage. And then Lee Jun appeared. Their eyes met. For a second, Bella thought he would walk past her too, pretend like nothing had happened. But instead, he stopped. You heard. His voice was unreadable. Bella swallowed. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. He took a slow step closer. Do you believe what she said? Bella hesitated. I don't know. Lee Jun exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Neither do I. Bella's heart pounded. He was fighting his feelings. But so was she. And no matter how much they denied it, they were falling. Bella couldn't sleep that night. The words she overheard kept replaying in her mind. Lee Jun's cold dismissal, Sua's desperation, and the undeniable truth beneath it all. He was different with her. She had felt it in the way he looked at her, the way his touch lingered just a little too long, the way his eyes softened when he thought no one was watching. But if he refused to acknowledge it, what was she supposed to do? The next morning at work, Bella tried to focus, but every time she caught sight of Lee Jun, her heart raced. He was just as cold and unreadable as ever, but now she knew better. He was fighting it, just like she was. But why? The answer came faster than she expected. A few hours later, Bella was sorting through reports when the office door slammed open. Han Su-ah stormed in, her eyes burning with fury. "So it's true," she hissed. Bella blinked, startled. "Excuse me? You think you're special?" Su-ah sneered, stepping closer. "That just because you're different, he'll suddenly change for you?" Bella stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Su-ah let out a humorless laugh. "Of course you do. You're acting all innocent, but you know Lee Jun likes you, and you're just eating it up, aren't you?" Bella's throat tightened. The words hit harder than she expected. "That's not—" Su-ah cut her off, voice trembling with anger. "He's been cold and distant his entire life, and now you come along and suddenly he's someone else?" She sucked in a sharp breath. "I've known him since we were kids. I've been by his side all these years, but he never looked at me the way he looks at you." Bella's breath caught. "The way he looks at me?" Before she could find a response, another voice interrupted. "Sue." Bella turned sharply. Lee Jun stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. His jaw was tight, his posture rigid. Sua turned to face him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell her she means nothing to you." Her hands balled into fists. "Tell her I'm imagining things." Bella held her breath, heart hammering against her ribs. Lee Jun's eyes flickered to her. For the first time, he didn't look away. The tension thickened, a silent battle waging between them. Bella didn't dare to speak. She wanted to move, to do something, but she was frozen, trapped in the weight of the moment. Lee Jun exhaled slowly and turned back to Su-ah. His voice was steady. "I'm sorry." Su-ah inhaled sharply, her face crumbling. She let out a shaky laugh, filled with disbelief, then turned and stormed out of the room. "Silence?" Bella swallowed, forcing herself to look at him. "Why didn't you deny it?" Lee Jun dragged a hand through his hair, his shoulders tense. "Because I don't want to lie." Bella's chest tightened. She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. Lee Jun took a step closer, voice quieter now. "I'm done fighting this." Her pulse roared in her ears as he closed the distance between them. And then, without another word, his lips crashed onto hers. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.